Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user Deleted. My grandmother, 63 female, had a premonition about my mother, 41 female, dying, and she thinks it'll be my 21 female's fault. Backstory: my mother is a drug addict, and my father has lived in a different state than me for most of my life. I was raised by my grandmother and my great aunt. I love and appreciate them both so much, although my grandmother can be narcissistic at times. I saw my mother infrequently throughout my childhood, and when I did see her, she was either sleeping the entire time, coming down from the drugs, or focused on one of her creepy boyfriends. I still longed for a relationship with her because she was my mother and I loved her. When I was about 8, my mother ended up stealing my grandmother's car and money from her desk, which prompted my grandmother to report her to the police. My mother went to jail for that, but when she was released, she went straight back to her old ways. A few years later, my mother ended up in prison for possession of narcotics. We began writing letters to each other and building a relationship. Eventually, she was set to be released, and it was decided that she would go and live with her father in a town about 3 hours away from where I lived. My grandmother decided that we would also move to that town so I could develop a relationship with my mother. It was really amazing at first. My mother and I finally were close, and she was clean for the first time in my life. I loved her so much, and I was so happy to have her. It is worth noting that my grandmother, my mother, and I were all living with my grandfather, who I had never met before moving in with him. He was verbally abusive to me and my mother, and I have a lot of issues from being around him. This all continued for about 5 years. I was in high school and thinking about my future. I was really excelling. Everything after this point happened extremely quickly, and it was a really dark time in my life. It was revealed to me that we were struggling financially. We had to move out of our beautiful home into a much smaller one that was owned by the church we attended. Because of this, I was sharing a room with my mother. She began disappearing for a day or two at a time, but I always thought she was just with friends. She then got into a car accident that totaled her car and should have killed her, but remarkably, she was unharmed. Soon after the accident, it was revealed that she was still using drugs and had been for the past 2 years. I had never felt so betrayed in my entire life. I immediately decided to move back to the city where I had previously lived to be with my great aunt. I left behind my friends, my high school, and my boyfriend because I couldn't handle being around my mother. Soon after I moved in with my great aunt, my grandmother and grandfather decided to also move in with my aunt. I had a lot of resentment towards my grandfather, and so I moved on my own back to the city where my friends were. This leads me to be a basically homeless teenager. I got a job and a GED and put off college. My boyfriend helped support me, and it took me about a year to become stable. My mother continued using drugs and I pushed her out of my life. She ended up going to court to get custody of me back from my grandmother and great aunt. She was awarded the child support checks that were helping me stay afloat and caused me to lose my health insurance because my great aunt was no longer my legal guardian. So now we get to the present day. It has been a while and I'm in college and financially stable. I am engaged to that same wonderful boyfriend and getting married in about 3 months. I only have polite conversations with my mother when I run into her, but other than that, I'm not in touch. My grandmother, however, is still in contact with her and has forgiven her. I do not want to invite my mother to my wedding or the bridal shower that my grandmother is hosting. When I explained this to my grandmother, she told me that 5 years or so ago she had a premonition that my mother would die at a young age. She is convinced that if I don't invite my mother to my wedding, that she will try to end herself, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen. My grandmother says that it would be my fault if that happened, and that I wouldn't be able to live with myself if my mother dies because of me. My grandmother invited my mother behind my back, but I want to tell my grandmother that she needs to call my mother and tell her that she can't come. I don't want my mother there during what is supposed to be such a joyous day in my life. My fiance can't stand her for good reason. She is toxic to me and she is an active drug user, but I know that if she tried to harm herself, then my grandmother and the rest of my family would hate me forever. Am I being selfish? What am I supposed to do here? Okay, OP, in my opinion, no, you are not being selfish. I personally believe in accountability and that people should be held accountable for what they do. If your mother makes that horrible decision and ends it, it's not on you, it is only on her. And your grandmother trying to emotionally manipulate you like this is just disgusting. She may have forgiven her daughter, good for her I suppose, but she's also enabling her daughter to continue to use drugs because, as you said, your mom is still an active drug user. OP, in my opinion, if you don't want your mom at your wedding, then you don't invite. And if your grandma is planning and throwing this shower for you and she invited your mom, well then just cancel the shower or tell your grandma that you're not gonna be there if your mom is there. You have no obligation to be at that shower at all. And regarding a relationship with your mom, I'd say you could start thinking about one after your mom is clean and is making amends. But that's still your decision to make. And what do you guys think OP should do in this situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Courier6 says, you aren't being selfish. Whatever your mother does, that's on her, not you. She never cared enough to be around and stay clean when you were growing up. She has no business being at your wedding. This is supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life. Don't let her or anyone else ruin it for you. If you don't want her there, she shouldn't be there. This is your day, not your mother's, not your grandmother's, yours. Honestly, the way your grandmother is acting, I wouldn't want her there either. Jay Palan says, good lord, your grandmother is probably pretty unstable from the years of stress of having a verbally abusive husband and a substance abusing daughter, and is constantly on react to crisis mode and may very well be losing her grip on rational behavior. Your mother, in essence, made you homeless as a teenager, among other offenses. You have every right never to speak to her again if you'd prefer not to, and you definitely have every right to not have her at your wedding. KittenCat4U says, quote, am I being selfish? What am I supposed to do here? End quote. No, you're not being selfish at all. Your grandmother is trying to force you to do what you don't want and trying to force a relationship with your mom. You tell your grandma that going behind your back was rude and wrong and that she needs to call your mom back and to tell her that she isn't invited. Whatever your mom might or might not do is on her and her alone. Your grandma needs to stop trying to guilt you into it. I'd also make grandma's wedding invitation staying the same only if she uninvites your mom. If you are super worried no one will listen to your request, I suggest hiring security for the door. Give them your mom's and maybe grandma's name and a picture. Alright, well the community agrees that OP is not selfish in this situation and also gave her some tips and things that she could do to make the situation better. Now OP has given us 2 updates to this post, so let's move on with the first one to see what happens next. First, I need to talk about a few things that I left out last time for the sake of brevity. My great aunt and I have always been very close. She was always the one that hung out with me, talked to me, and allowed me to have a childhood. I can count on one hand the number of times that we have seriously fought. My great aunt, grandmother, and grandfather all live in the same house. Secondly, earlier this year when I first got engaged, my fiancé and I were trying to decide on a budget for our wedding. We are both students and we knew we wanted to keep it inexpensive. Our original plan was to throw a very casual barbecue wedding at the church that we both attended as children. I let my grandmother know about this and she was happy with it. Later though, she told me that she and my grandfather both needed surgery. She let me know that it would be really great if I could come and stay with them for a little while until the wedding so that I could help take care of the house and I would save a ton of money on rent, food, etc. I thought about it and talked to my fiancé about it, and I said that I would stay with them for 3 months leading up to the wedding. I then quit my job and did not renew the lease on my apartment. The third thing is that 1 week after the wedding, my fiancé and I are moving to a different state. This is another reason I decided to move in with my grandparents, so I would not have to sign another lease and deal with finding a subleaser, etc. They also stated that they would like to spend time with me before I moved so far away. The final thing is that I struggle with anxiety and depression. I have it mostly under control now, but I was in a really dark place last year. I can't afford therapy now because I lost my health insurance due to my mother. I was seeing a therapist at my college, but I moved away, like I said, to be with my grandparents and great aunt. I'm dealing with it fairly well. Thanks to all of you wonderful people, I was able to clearly stand my ground on this issue and tell them that my mother was not invited to the wedding or the shower. I spoke to my aunt first, separate from my grandmother. I explained my feelings and she asked if I could just invite my mom to the shower and see how she acts and then make a decision about the wedding later. I said no, she is a drug addict and we all know how she will act. I said I don't want her there and that is final. She eventually agreed and said that it is sad, but it is what it is. Later that night, I spoke to my grandmother about it. She had a bit of a breakdown crying and saying I was putting her through terrible pain. I reiterated my feelings and I started crying. I told her that this is hard on me as well. Of course, I wish I could have a healthy, supportive mother, but I don't. She tried to tell me that the reason I feel this way is because I have anxiety and I'm being irrational. She also told me that I have made this the saddest point in her life. This conversation went on for quite some time and I told her how much it hurts me that she can't put my feelings first for once. She said that she loves me and my mother equally. At the end of the conversation, she told me that she would respect my decision and we left it at that. I thought it was resolved, but I was apparently very wrong. The next morning when I woke up, I went to the kitchen and my grandmother's cell phone was ringing. She was in her bedroom. I saw that it was my great aunt calling from work, so I answered it. She was just returning a call and the conversation was short. When I ended the call, my grandmother's Facebook Messenger was open. I saw my name all over this long paragraph of a message. I read it. I probably shouldn't have, but I was just so tired of this that I had to know what was going on. She had sent a message to an old family friend detailing the entire situation. She was thanking him for sharing all of her Facebook posts because she wanted me to see them. She said that she was going to do everything in her power to get me to change my mind. I was furious when I saw the message. Funny thing is that I hadn't seen any of the posts, but when I went and looked, they were all about how we only get one mother and how we should love and cherish our mothers, etc. I immediately went to her room and told her that we apparently needed to talk again. I told her I read the message and that I had deleted and blocked her from Facebook. I told her that she is severely damaging her relationship with me at this point. She cried again and said that she promised never to bring it up again. I stupidly believed her. That brings us to today. I was home alone all day cleaning the house and working on online schoolwork. I was feeling a bit down, but overall okay because I thought the issue was finally resolved. My aunt came home from work and asked me if I'd like to go to the gym with her. I said yes, and she said that before we left we needed to talk. I sat down with her and she said that my grandmother and she had decided to cancel my wedding shower because they feel that I am stabbing my mother in the back and they want no part in it. I immediately clammed up so I wouldn't say something I regretted. I was so surprised to hear this coming from my aunt. She began to get angry at me because she could see that I was upset. She was saying things like, "Oh, what now, you're mad? And you're being ridiculous and selfish." I immediately called my fiancé to get some support because I felt like I was going to lose it. She began raising her voice at me, telling me how I'm not taking into account how she feels and that she just can't deal with me. I felt like I was going to Hulk smash someone. She left for the gym and I packed a bag. I made an online hotel reservation, called a cab and left. I've talked to my best friend, my fiance, and my dad on the phone. They've all confirmed the insanity of my aunt and grandmother. My dad offered to hire security for my wedding if I didn't want to invite them. I feel so sad and alone right now. I am so disappointed in my family. I don't know where to go from here. I can't stay in a hotel forever and I can't move out of their house because I quit my job to be with them. I feel like they have brought me so low and are sucking the life out of what is supposed to be the happiest time in my life. Oh man, OP, now your nice aunt is in on it too? That sucks. Honestly, I'd talk to my fiance and see if, maybe you could move in with him for the time being until the wedding and then you guys are moving away anyway. But there's no point in speculating because we have the final update. So let's move on with that to see how this story ends. I want to start this post off by saying thank you to all of the incredibly kind and motivational people who offered me help and advice. I came to Reddit 3 years ago for the cat pictures and over these past few days, you guys have become a big part of my support system. I've read every comment and I cannot express how therapeutic it has been to write everything out and then receive input. Now for the update. I have a hard time sleeping in hotels and because of that, I was up most of last night. I spent my time partly scouring the internet for subleases and temp jobs. Around 3 a.m., I received a text message from my aunt. She asked me if she could please call me. I said fine, and I could tell that she had been crying when I answered the phone. She immediately began apologizing to me and told me that she couldn't sleep because she didn't know where I had gone and she felt so horrible about the way that she had treated me. She said she was trying to give me space, but that she needed to know I was safe. We don't live in the safest city, and I don't have any friends in the area, and she desperately wanted to talk to me in person. I told her that she could come to my hotel room alone, without my grandmother, and speak to me. She came over and we had a very long talk. She apologized again and explained to me that my grandmother has been putting an immense amount of pressure on her to make me change my mind. She said that she broke because of the stress from dealing with my grandmother, and that she decided to cancel the shower because she couldn't handle the drama that my grandmother was creating surrounding it. She acknowledges that she shouldn't have taken her anger out on me. She then told me that she was going to take the money that she was going to use for the shower and pay for an amazing bachelorette party. This honestly suits me so much better than the shower did, and I am really thrilled about it. My aunt and I are not going to tell my grandmother about this trip so that there is no opportunity for her to create drama. My aunt and I created a plan for my next 3 months here, which involves me being out of the house most of the time doing things I enjoy. I have scheduled trips to go see my friends and fiancé, which will get me away for a couple of days at a time. When I am at home, I will just be polite to my grandmother, but I will not involve her in any wedding planning. I sent my mother an email letting her know why she is not invited to my wedding. My dad will be hiring security. The wedding shower was truly my grandmother's weapon, and now that it is gone, she is moping and defeated. She told me today that she will have to call everyone and let them know that it is cancelled, so it was my last chance to change my mind. I told her that I didn't make the decision to cancel it in the first place, but I am happy that it is cancelled. I can handle another 3 months living around her because the light at the end of the tunnel, wedding and moving, is going to be amazing. Now that my aunt has apologized and is back to normal, I feel like we are a team, which is so empowering. Thank you again, sincerely, for reading and commenting. It means the world to me. Heart. Well, OP, I'm gonna count this as a positive update. It's a good thing that your aunt is back on your team and helping you and actually giving you that awesome bachelorette party. And by canceling that shower that your grandma was hosting, well, she's got no power, so all good for you. So on that note, all the best in the future, OP. I hope your wedding is awesome and take care. Thank you for sharing. Now, let's move on to the next post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user Cyfielder. Sorry, my shift is over. Many years ago, I worked for a cafeteria or catering company. The catering was much the more lucrative of the two. Between meal times, we would work on catering projects. This would often run us past the end of our shift, resulting in overtime. One of the management team recently promoted decided his thing was going to be eliminating overtime. He held a meeting and announced to the staff there would be no more overtime. Clock out at shift's end, no exceptions. After, he got me aside and told me, as a supervisor, I was expected to set an example. Okay, sure. A couple of days later, I was working on a cheese display. When my shift's end came around, I put everything down, walked to the clock and swiped my card. I hear, "Hey, what are you doing? That's not finished." "No, but my shift is, and I'm setting an example," I answered. "Well, go finish it," I was told. "I can't, I'm off work now," and left. The next day, it was announced that all projects underway at the time would be allowed to be finished regardless of time, as long as it wasn't abused. In other words, no foot dragging. Turns out all the hourly employees also left, and he had to finish several projects by himself. Since he was on salary, there was no overtime for him. I understand he stayed quite late. Well, OP, you were setting an example just as you were told. Good for you. Thanks for sharing, OP. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.